Okay. And Tasha will be Tasha and Virginia. Okay.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. I'm Kate Raditz with McClung PR. Very happy to be hosting Agate's town hall. I was really excited to be asked to be part of this conversation. Prior to coming to the public relations world, I was a news reporter for many years. Almost 10 years I spent at WCCO TV here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I walked in and introduced myself to Kyle, and we both said, yeah, I think we've done some interviews together before sometimes in our careers, so should be a good conversation today. A couple of reminders to kick things off. Just first, that there are restrooms right by the cafe and downstairs. They should be marked with signs for you to find them. And also, thank you to New Branches for hosting us in this beautiful facility here today. So I'm so excited to welcome you to Agate's Town Hall. I will be sitting down with Executive Director Kyle Hansen to get the latest and greatest information. And we will also have some time to ask questions, and I will leave a little bit of time for you to ask any questions as well. First, though, I would like to introduce a special guest this afternoon. Shannon is here to tell us a little bit about her story. So let's give her a warm welcome.
I'm going to try not to spill anything real quick. Okay, my name is Shannon. I have been homeless off and on for a large part of my life. My background does not I come from money and education. That wasn't why I was homeless. I was addicted to heroin at a very young age. I came here from Ohio about 12 years ago, and I heard there was resources, so I came to find those, and I had difficulty with that. So I was living in a tent, and that was for 16 months, and I used to go to the 510 building, or what was it called prior? Yeah, it was a house of charity, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know which you know it as, but, and they had the cleanest place to take showers. It was the staff bathroom, and the staff there was fantastic, and that's where the whole time I was living in a tent, I went and took care of my hygiene, because that's really important when you're living on the streets. I don't know if anyone realizes how important that is. It keeps your dignity, you know. And they also let me come in to stay warm when it was cold and sit in like a little room and have coffee. So that place meant a lot to me. It may seem like a small thing, showers, but for me it was huge because I was sleeping in a tent and freezing and had nowhere like that to be. But in the tent, eventually an outreach worker from Agate came and kept coming and harassing me because I did not want help at the time. I had given up on everything and I was ready to just, OD is what I was really trying to do. And he would not leave me alone until I came to Agate and talked to somebody to see if I was eligible for services. So eventually he talked me into it, so I went and I got accepted into the Housing First program and got an apartment. And I did not get clean right away, but he helped me get into a methadone clinic, and I still didn't get clean right away. But about 4 years into being housed and going through a few apartments because I did not know how to live as an adult in a place because I had been homeless for so long, I ended up cleaning up and getting a place that was in a safe neighborhood without all the drugs and got off of everything. And at this point, I actually am an on-call employee at Agate, and I still receive services, but I have been working there now for 7 years and have been with them with services and such for over 10. So they're a big part of my life and a big part of why I got sober, why I'm alive, and why I am able to stand here today and be, pretty normal. So, thank you. And that was under 6 minutes. So, thank you.
Since I've worn a mic like this, so can you hear me okay? I think I turned it on. Great. Shannon, thank you so much for, now I didn't see where, there you are. Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, we're in a room full of Agate fans, obviously, supporters, and I think it's just a perfect example of the real life impact that Agate has on people's lives. So really, I think everyone just really thank you. You're very grateful that you shared your story. And now we're going to hear another side of the story, what's going on with the organization itself. And I'm joined with Executive Director Kyle Hansen. Kyle, good to see you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out of this unusually warm October day to be with us today. It's good to see you all.
It is strange. It's fall, but it's not.
It's fall, but
wait
it's
a day. Just wait a day. Maybe 2 days. Kyle joined Agate in July 2022. It is the first official leader of the organization named Agate, which was formed by the merger House of Charity and St. Stephen's Human Services. Kyle was most recently a director at the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. He also happens to be an ordained pastor with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, with a divinity degree in social justice, and co-pastors a congregation in Crystal. So you're busy. You're a little busy. Kyle, let's start with getting to know you. You're just 2 years into this job, and you have another job on top of this one. So tell us a little bit about where your background and how you landed here.
Yeah. So prior to being at Agate, I really had decided that affordable housing circles were really where I wanted to land in my career. And for, I guess it's been going on 24 years now, that's been the work that I've done. I worked in government settings. I worked for Dakota County for a little while. I got my start out in Renville County in a little one-person HRA office where I kind of did everything and learned the ropes of how to run an organization. In the meantime, I went back to school and got a master's degree in public and nonprofit administration with a goal of someday kind of working to help lead an organization. 22 years ago, I met my husband, John, who on our first date, I said, well, tell me about your family. What do they do? He said, well, my mom's a Lutheran pastor, my dad's a Lutheran pastor, and my sister's a Lutheran pastor. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I had some ups and downs with the church over my life, but it was clear that once I met my husband, that I was on a path to ordination in the Lutheran Church as well. So I was ordained in 2020, so a relatively new part of my life working in the church world. But again, really approaching all of that through the lens of social justice. That's my real background and was my course of study while I was at seminary at Luther in St. Paul. And once I graduated, I was working at a church, but this job became open. And I took the job posting, I showed it to my husband, and I said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think this sounds like a good place." And he said, "I think it sounds like a perfect place for you to land, Kyle." So I am honored and humbled every day to lead this organization, do this work. Over the last 2 years, it's really become part of my heart, part of my soul. The really amazing folks that we work with, and of course the clients that we serve every single day. And I'm so glad that you can be part of this journey as well as we continue to walk down this road together.
Awesome. I do want to ask, there's been something in the news very recently. Just 3 weeks ago, one of your properties had a fire. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where things are with that?
Yeah. So that was a hard day, a hard phone call to get, and we had just purchased the Metro Inn from Hennepin County, not that far from here, down towards Bachman's on Lindale Avenue there. An old motor lodge that had been converted into permanent housing, and our staff and teams were providing support for the people that are living there. And it was really a perfect spot, perfect location, a really wonderful, small, manageable room for people. Everyone that lived there was exiting homelessness, and there were 38 units there that we had started moving people in at the end of last year. The fire, unfortunately, burned 16 of those units of the 38. They are a total loss and will have to be bulldozed, and we'll work with insurance to rebuild. 14 of those units were occupied at the time, so 14 people were displaced. We've had an amazing team of people who have been working in identifying housing plans for those folks. Foundations have stepped up, the Minneapolis Foundation amongst many other groups that stepped up with significant money to help us transition these folks, help with security deposits for new homes for them, help them with supplies. They lost everything in the fire. They were not able to recover any of their items, so they literally had pajamas on. And the Red Cross and Salvation Army stepped in the immediacy of the situation. But our teams pulled together. We've managed to house about half of those folks. The rest of them do have a semi-housing plan, and we've really set a goal of having everybody rehoused within a couple more weeks here. But again, people really stepped up to help out. People coming through the woodwork with supplies and offers of help and assistance. The county stepped in with some help and assistance as well. So it's just been remarkable to see in these times of crisis how a community can really come together.
You had another challenge this year. You announced the closure of one of your buildings in August. Can you tell us a little bit about why you announced that closure and what has happened since that time?
Yeah. So I guess earlier this spring, we were looking at our budget situation and really trying to figure out how and what we were going to do to get through this next period of time. The 510 South A Street building was originally a House of Charity building. It housed a board and lodge facility and a shelter. At the end of the day, about 135 people were housed there, and it was really some of the lowest barrier housing in the system. We really took folks in at that building that were coming out of incarceration, people with really pretty significant barriers to permanent housing, mental health issues, chemical health issues, some background check issues for people. So it really was a really important temporary place for people to land while we helped them move on to more permanent settings. When I came on board as the executive director, it was very clear that the building needed significant work to be done to it. The building had not cash flowed for quite a period of time and had started to fall into disrepair. The building is over 100 years old, and the initial assessment showed that there was between $4 and $6 million of capital work to be done in the building in order to bring it back to a place where it would be fully functional. So along with the board of directors, my senior leadership team, I made one of the hardest decisions that I've ever made as a person, the hardest decision in my career, to close down a building and lay off the staff that work there. As you can imagine, it was a really heart-wrenching decision. I lost a lot of sleep over it because I knew that these folks would be really hard to find alternative spaces and places for. But it was such an important and vital part of our community. So we made that decision and set a closure date of just a few weeks ago, actually. And lo and behold, once we made the announcement, we were surprised. The city of Minneapolis, thanks to advocacy from our union membership, who unbeknownst to me were working, talking to their city council members as a union, as the AFSCME union, and the city council decided to do something. They stepped up with a gift of $1.5 million, and we had a very generous donor within a couple days step up with an anonymous match of $1.5 million. That gets us about halfway to where we would need to be to rehab the building. So currently, I'm having an assessment, a full assessment of the building done to get a more concrete number of what it would take to rehab the building. I have been in conversation with some other donors who are interested in possibly stepping up to help. So by the end of the year, we should have a pretty good picture of whether or not we'll be able to reopen that facility. So there'll be much more information to come about that. One of the issues with that is we also have so many needs as an organization from a fundraising perspective and other pieces. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but we continue to have some deficit budgets. And so we also had to be really careful not to stretch ourselves too thin, and a capital campaign of $6 million was not something that we really had the bandwidth to launch in those efforts. But we're really hopeful that something will work out for this building and that some rebirth will happen from this period of time where we did have to have that closure done. The residents of the building, for the most part, we have housing for most of them. They have been rehoused. Sheila Delaney's here. You were one of the people that helped with our housing plans, along with our whole team of housing support folks and our shelter folks who worked really hard to find housing plans for some really difficult folks to find housing for. And we still have a few people lingering in hotels, but the majority of them do have housing plans within the next week and a half or 2 weeks to be resettled.
So possibly more information by the end of the year, you think, on whether or not you'll be able to reopen that?
Yeah, our goal is to have a final decision by the end of the year.
Okay. And this also impacted your food center.
It did. Unfortunately, our food center funding mostly came from the revenue that the board and lodge and the shelter paid for the meals at the food center. There were no other real government sources of funding for food systems, and so we made the very difficult decision to pause operations at the food center. I'm happy to report that we found a new partner for the food center, however. Involve MN is an organization that has been providing food resources to folks who are unhoused for a long period of time in our community. They have been providing meals for many of the shelter operations in town, and they have taken over operations at the food center. So we did not miss a day. The United Way stepped in with an emergency grant of $40,000 to help pay for meals for November and December while we figured out what our partnership would look like. We have set a goal of having a formal partnership in place by the end of November, which then will announce to everybody what this will look like. But it will mean that we'll be bringing in volunteers again to the food center to help serve meals 3 times a day. Instead of just 1 time a day, they're already doing that. They have free public meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And let me tell you, the food looks amazing. These are real cooks that really know what they're doing, and they have goals of bringing in a piano and tablecloths and really making it a dignified meal experience. So I'm really excited to work with them. They also have plans to reopen the food shelf, which was also closed. And you'll be hearing more about that in the very, very near future with some goals of having some things out by the end of November. So we're really excited about the Involve MN partnership and that we're going to be able to co-brand that facility and continue to provide food resources. It's part of our mission, right? It's right in our mission statement to relieve hunger. So we're really glad that we can continue that.
With the 510's future being figured out, is there a risk that any other Agate buildings will close?
Right. So the short answer to that is no. None of our buildings are in any jeopardy of closing. Our Park 7 building is a brand new building. We're about ready to open up another building, which we'll talk about in a minute. And if we are able to reopen the 510, obviously that would be fully rehabbed. And then the Metro Inn will be rebuilt with insurance. So we don't have any danger that other programs are in jeopardy there.
And I understand Agate serves almost 6,000 people each year. Only about 140, as you mentioned, were in the 510 building. What are your other programs? Can you talk a little bit about where are the other people that you serve?
Yeah. So, it's really important, I think, to point out that building, while really important, was a really small segment of the overarching work that we do. We continue to have another shelter that we operate. It's a couples shelter, which is really unique in the shelter world. It means that you can pair up with your important person in your life, and you don't have to go to separate spaces because of your gender or because of familial relationship. So it provides space and place for people who may turn down other shelters because it allows them to stay together. We also take pets at this shelter. There are currently, I think, about 4 dogs there that are part of it, but a lot of times people make choices around shelter around pets, and so we feel that's really important as well. So FCC shelter houses 50 people every single night. That's at the First Covenant Church, very close to the Vikings Stadium. We have street outreach teams who are out every day. Shannon, you talked about how important those street outreach workers were for you in your life. And they're out there doing that important work every single day, oftentimes in encampment situations or finding people where we know people tend to congregate and hang out. And they're tenacious. They show up and they show up and they show up. Those street outreach workers are some of my heroes. They do some of the hardest work in this community in all kinds of weather, in all kinds of situations, and really make sure that those people know that someone's there for them. Sometimes it takes a day to build a relationship. Sometimes it takes years to build a relationship with that person, but they stick with these folks. They show up with food resources. What do you need today? Like street outreach is about, what do you need today to get you to tomorrow, right? What does that mean for you? And so that work that they do there is really, really hard work. I'm really proud of our team. I would like to say that we are the best in the business of that. There are a lot of other teams. We were one of the first teams that did that street outreach work here in the Twin Cities, and they continue to be, they have housed so many people over the last several months that the numbers are just really remarkable. We also have a welcome center at our 2309 Nicollet location. That welcome center continues to be really important work. Again, it's a drop-in style center where people know we're there. They know they can find their street outreach worker there. They know that they can connect with their support case managers there. They know that they can come there and find a food kit, some water. They can warm up for a few minutes. They know that there's help there. So that center is a busy, busy place. We collect mail for how many people? 1,500 people. We are their mailing address, right? So we, every day, the postal worker brings in cartons of mail that are then sorted through. But think about it, if you're living unsheltered, where do you get your important documents mailed to? If you get an ID, where do you get it mailed to? If you have court paperwork or family interactions, where does that get mailed to? So we collect mail. People are stopping in all day long. They come in to collect their mail, but they leave with a touch point with a human being. They leave with a bag of food and a little bit of hope. So that's a really important hub. We provide services that help people obtain documents, birth certificates, driver's licenses. That all happens there. We produce the Handbook of the Streets every year. That goes out to thousands and thousands of service providers who are then able to use that resource guide to help people get connected with housing. And then our largest programs are actually the ones that kind of fly under the radar a little bit. About half of our employee base actually are in our umbrella of supportive housing programs where we help people find, locate, and sustain housing. Several thousand people on those programs every year. Some of them very short-term programs where we help people get settled, we help them find and locate housing, help them come up with their security deposits, get them settled, and then our work is done. Some people, like Shannon talked about, we stick with them for years through these transitions and help them. We pay rent on behalf of thousands of people every single month. That first of the month, literally several $100,000 of rent checks going out every single month. We also have representative payee services where we pay rent and utility bills on behalf of people. We manage their social security funds so that they can maintain their housing, and we have hundreds of people on that program as well. So all kinds of touch points. We have a total of between 120 and 140 employees at any given time. We're a $26 million annual operating budget organization. So we're no longer a small entity. We are a big, major player in the nonprofit world and have a really big footprint within Hennepin County proper. So all of our services are within the walls of Hennepin County, but we are at every corner of the county working with folks in housing.
I asked you about building closures, but did you mention if there are any programs at risk of closing?
So there's no imminent risk of programs closing. We have a good, solid government contracts with mainly with Hennepin County, some with DHS, mainly state funds, a little bit of HUD funding, but those contracts are relatively stable. Where there is risk, we are an organization with a deficit budget. So choices will continue to have to be made. Right now, we're okay for this budget year, but clearly we need more help to get out of that kind of recurring deficit situation so that we don't have to be constantly thinking about what's next. But I feel confident that we're not going to have to make any other changes to programs right now, and that there are some important advocacy things that we'll talk about later, that funding streams that continue to impact the work that we do. But right now, we're okay with programs, but clearly the deficit is always something that's hanging kind of right here for me.
We hear a lot about encampments, in this space, and you see them pop up in your community. I think you brought it up already in our discussion. What does Agate do to try to get people out of encampments and into homes?
So much of the work with encampment touch points happens with our street outreach folks. That is our main source of making contact with people who are living in an encampment. There are encampments all over this city. I don't know if people are, you see some of the bigger ones and think maybe 1, 2, or 3. There are at any given time, 25, 30, 40 encampments. Some of them are 3, 4, 5 tents. Some of them grow to be these larger encampments, and you hear about the big ones when they happen, but on any given day, there are many smaller encampments that are popping up all over. They move around quite frequently. But our main touch point and our main source of contact with people is through our street outreach team. Of course, there are other teams out there that are also doing referrals. The goal is always to get enough information to get that person put into the county system so that they're a known entity in there, and then we can start tracking. And there may be then referrals through the county if other organizations have made contact with them. We do talk to all of our partners, all the other service providers and service organizations. We work very closely with them on who are you working with, who are we working with, have you seen them? There's a kind of a constant back and forth.
We usually tend to hear a lot of scary things about encampments, that there can be violence or drug use. My question is, why do people stay? Why do people stay there? And is there anything good happening in encampments?
So there's a lot of misperception and misinformation about encampments, and I think so let's start with what happens there that's good, right? There is community that's built there, right? People taking care of each other, people helping each other with resources. And I'm one of the things I'm amazed at that happens in encampments. It also happens outside of our building when people are given things. That instinct to share, that instinct to help your neighbor is there for people. And it's there for people that have the least amount of stuff to give, right? And so I think that there is a lot of care that happens, especially initially when an encampment forms. There are people taking care of each other. They know to watch out for each other. They know to check on you if you're having a bad day or a bad experience, or maybe have some chemical or mental health issues that are rearing up for you. They know to kind of keep an eye out, make sure that you're alive at the end of the day. So there is community there. One thing, it does make it easier for our street outreach teams to know where people are. We can find you if you're in that. Clearly, we live in a wealthy enough society that we should not have to have encampments. And in the short term, I think they're going to be there, right? So what I would like to try to figure out is if they're going to be there, how can we better provide for the folks who are there, right? And so I think that some of the work that needs to be done is, how do we support people in encampments? How do we work better to keep them safe while they're there? How do we provide sanitation so that they actually have somewhere to go to the bathroom? How do we provide water and food supports to them? Those are things that we do. We bring food, we bring water, we bring help. But the reality is there's no simple and quick solution for many of the folks who are living in an encampment. Even if they have the skill set or the desire or the help that's there, that can take 30, 60, 90, 120 days plus to try to help people find and locate and get to a safer place. Some of the folks that are there because of chemical health, and many of the shelter spaces, many of the transitional spaces, you have to be sober or clean, or there are stipulations on use. There are a few places that do allow some transitional use or safe use spaces, but those are few and far between as well. So it's a complex issue that I wish I had good answers and solutions to. My goal is to try to support people who are there to the best of my ability, to the best of our ability as an organization. And in a minute, we'll talk a little bit about some advocacy around some shelter bills and encampment bills that are moving forward. We have members of our senior leadership team who are serving on a task force right now around encampments and trying to figure out more humane solutions to encampments. And if there does need to be a clearing of an encampment, how can we do that in a way that isn't quite as threatening and maybe has some easier outcomes for folks.
Since you brought that up, let's talk about that. You know, of course, some of these problems are caused by systemic issues. Can you talk a little bit about how Agate is working with the legislature to make Minnesota a place where more people can expect to find a home they can afford?
Right. So there's a lot of work being done. You know, a couple years ago, I'm sure you saw at the state level, more money flowed out of the state government for housing and supportive housing and building and shelter and than we've seen in a really long time. And all of that's really great. It does take some time to put up new buildings. A new building from start to finish can take 5 to 7 years to put up. But we've made great strides. Hennepin County had some real success in ending veterans homelessness over the past period of time. But there are some lingering things that need attention out there. So shelter funding is one big one that we're going to see a real urgent push for in this next legislative session. We got COVID dollars that are expiring at the end of 2025. Those dollars provided for the first time in the history of shelter funding for 24/7 operations for shelter. That funding is threatened to go away if it's not renewed in a way. So there will be bills brought forward to try to continue that. I'm really afraid of that money going away because it's just inhumane to have to tell someone at 8 o'clock in the morning, sorry, you got to pack up your stuff, take it all with you. We'll see you again at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And the other thing about that is, when does all the work happen to try to find and locate housing for people? During the day, right? When are the case managers available to help you during the day? When can you make Social Security and driver's license and birth certificate appointments during the day, right? So all that work has to be done during the day. And so I've said, I've drawn a line in the sand. If I have to put my office, my desk, like at the shelter and sit there and do my work, I will. But I'll do everything I can not to close down operations. But that bill is going to be really important for funding. We're going to be seeking your help in that. We're also seeking increased rates for the housing support programs at the state. That'll be a really important push that we're doing at the legislature this coming year. One of the reasons we have a deficit budget is because of the way that services for our largest programs work. We take on clients, we help locate housing with them, we work for them for sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4 months, and we don't get paid until they're housed. So we do a lot of that upfront work, but we have to float the salaries for those employees. So we're working on advocacy for changes to some of those programs that provide housing support, and actually are asking for increased service rates for that. We're asking for landlord incentive monies. That'll be another push that we're asking for, to try to incentivize property owners to take a risk, to work with us, and we'll incentivize you with an additional security deposit or a fund that would help mitigate if there's any damage or repairs that need to be done. And then there is also some work we're doing with the city of Minneapolis around standards for encampment clearings to make them more predictable and, as I said earlier, more humane. those are some of the policy things that we'll be working on over the coming months. Paul Verrett is here. Paul leads a lot of our work on all of these issues at the state legislature, and he's at the state capitol almost every day during session, knocking on doors and advocating on behalf of Agate and our clients.
Okay, we quizzed you on challenges, so we'll talk about some good news. You have a new building in the works. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so really excited about our new building that is under construction in the Longfellow neighborhood of Minneapolis. It's going up on the corner of 28th Street and 27th Avenue. So if you think about Minnehaha, the Cub Foods, Target, and then there's an Aldi and the Schooner Tavern. If you drive out of the Schooner Tavern parking lot to the north, our building is about a half a block up the street. The land was generously donated by an anonymous donor who purchased a $1.5 million donation to buy the land. All of the tax credit housing and everything, applications through the county and the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota came together. We broke ground this summer, and we are on target for a September opening of a brand new shelter and supportive housing complex. So there'll be permanent supportive housing on the top floors, in a new 50-bed shelter on the bottom floor, so at the end of the day, almost 100 people will have a new space and place to be. We couldn't be more excited. One of the things I'm really excited about is that the shelter was designed to be a shelter. It's not simply a church basement with beds in it. It's going to be really dignified, and was designed with deep input from folks who have lived experience, who have been through our shelter system, and just really excited about the new building. We're still in the naming process of it, so we'll announce a new name soon, but can't wait to invite you all to the grand opening, which will be hopefully around September, just in time to get folks in before fall and winter settle in. Exactly a year from now, there should be people living there.
And that time will go fast. So
it will fly by.
It will go fast.
It will fly by.
I'm very excited to see the finished product. Is there anything else you're really looking forward to right now with Agate?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not going to lie, right? This has been a difficult time for this organization. We have been through a lot, right? You take anytime there's a merger of two organizations, it's hard, right? Mm-hmm. Merging systems, learning how one way does it this way, one does it this way. How are we going to do things? How are we going to come together? You throw a pandemic in the middle of that, some change in executive leadership, social unrest through that period of time, which had significant impact on our employees and our clients. Add a new director to the mix. We've been through a lot as an organization. But what I'm excited about is I feel like we're there, right? I feel like some of these hard choices have happened. This new growth is happening, the stabilization is happening. Folks like you are really becoming engaged with our work in ways that we haven't seen before, which is really exciting to me. And so I feel like people know who we are again. The name change was a little bit hard on people. They remember and, firmly devoted to St. Stephen's, or we're firmly devoted to the House of Charity, and, kind of hanging on to those names. And, a year or so ago, we were still getting checks written out to those organizations. And now I feel like we've been in the news a lot, for some really great things, for some really hard things. But that news cycle has also introduced us and reintroduced us to the community. We're starting to see folks who maybe had not engaged in the last couple of years kind of start to come back and re-engage with us. So I am really excited about the place and space where we're at. We just took on some new board members, and for the first time we have 2 members of our board with lived experience of homelessness who are going to bring all that education and value with them. So I just feel like this place is in a really good spot. We've got some really remarkable dynamic leadership at our high levels. Last week we had a job fair. We advertised on KMOJ, and we had someone go out and do an interview from our staff. We had 10 or 12 people sign up, so we kind of staffed up for a dozen interviews. We had 80 people show up that wanted to work at our organization. Wow. That speaks volumes to the fact that people want to be part of the work that we're doing. And so I feel like we're back. I feel like we're headed in the right direction. We found enough people to fill the roles that we had open. So knock wood, we're about as close to full employment as we've been in a long time. And so I just couldn't feel better about where we're going, even though I'm not going to lie, these last few months took a lot out of me. They were really, really hard. Lots of sleepless nights, lots of tears, lots of just really kind of gut-wrenching, hard things to do. But I think we're coming out on the right side of it.
I wish I would have asked you that one next, because now I'm asking you about your concerns, but I should have ended on the positive note.
Yeah.
What is worrying you the most
about
the future of this work?
You know, like I said, the programs that we run, there isn't a program that we run that covers 100% of our cost, right? So the cost of operations is always going to be more than the program dollars provide for. Because of that, we always have a bit of a deficit, right? We're always kind of chasing down that road. That's my biggest concern is how do we continue to sustain this organization over time? Virginia Brown was hired about a year ago now, and has done a remarkable job of working with folks like you to tell our story, and we have an aggressive plan of really taking our organization from one level of funding to a higher level of funding, which will then be sustainable over time. You've heard much about that. You'll be hearing more about that as we send out our fall campaign letters. But I'm really convinced that we're on the right path with that. But that's the biggest thing that keeps me up at night, is just kind of like, how are we going to pay for all the work that needs to be done? And at the end of the day, I said it before, even then, it's just never enough. There's always more we can do, right? And there's always more we can do. But I think that's the one thing that kind of still keeps hanging over my shoulder.
Well, we're in a room full of people who are invested. They care about Agate and the people that you serve. What do you want them to take away in terms of how do they help?
So number one, just your being here. You're showing interest in our organization, talking to other folks about what you heard and learned today, sharing with your friends, your neighbors, your network, to try to help us. Money's always the big thing. Give to the Max starts Friday. We'll be doing a big push. We were this much short of being on the major leaderboard last year. We were like 1 or 2 organizations away. And so I challenged my team. I was like, I want to be on that leaderboard next year, right? So you're going to be hearing a lot about Give to the Max. There's going to be some fun social media interaction that day of Give to the Max, but you can start giving for Give to the Max as early as Friday. You'll be seeing some things on that. So if you see stuff on social media, share it with your network and your friends. It's a really good way to draw attention to that. Like I said, introduce us. Invite other folks to events like this when they happen. We have, every couple of months now, we've been having these Agate events where we get together, we talk about issues. We have someone come in and speak about their lived experience of homelessness. They're small gatherings. If you'd like to host one, let us know. But they're fun. We just have coffee. We sit around and talk about issues. That's a way that you can help. We talked about advocacy. There's going to be some real opportunity coming up for advocacy work that will be happening in this upcoming session. We're going to talk to you about picking up the phone and calling your legislators. That has really big impact, even more than emailing. Emailing's great. A phone call goes even further. You tell us. We did a survey, right? Tell us how you think you can help. We have lots of volunteer opportunities. You all have ideas. Some of the things that we've been doing lately have come from folks like you who have made suggestions to us. So we need you just as much as you can with your ideas and things as well.
Kyle, thank you. I think that is all the questions I have for you. So with that, we will open up questions for the audience. We have some Agate, we'll have microphones coming around from Agate team members. So if you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand and someone will bring a microphone to you so you can go ahead and ask Kyle your question. Right here?
I'm going to actually jump the line.
Sure.
So we have some folks joining us by live stream. First off, sorry for the technical issues. We will get you a recording. We had a little bit of bumpiness, but we did have some questions submitted ahead of time, so I want to make sure we get to those. So this person's saying that they supported House of Charity for a long time due to retraining and help given people to get back into society. Housing seems to have taken a front seat at Agate. Are you continuing the job training and self-sufficiency path?
Right. So those supportive housing programs that I talked about that we operate, our case managers are always working with folks to try to do referrals to other programs that can help people. We look to the experts. We can't do everything. So we do partner with many folks around employment services, around all of those pieces. Recovery has also been a big part. We've struggled a little bit in that area. We had hired a contractor. That relationship didn't work out. But what we're looking at with the redoing of the 510 building is some opportunity there for some deeper recovery services. And we've already begun talking to some partners about opportunities there if we were to reopen that building. But we have been looking into how we can dive a little bit more deeply into helping support people through recovery, because we realize for many, many people that is a key part of their housing work. But up until recently, we did have programs in our buildings that helped people with recovery as well.
Thanks, Kyle. And another from the audience, I'm going to rephrase this a little bit, but it seems that they've heard that Agate mishandled funding, maybe with all the changes and everything that's happened. What do you have to say to that? Yeah,
I mean, not that I have become aware of any mishandling of funds. Clearly, why I would wonder about the 510 building. It was just a simple fact that there wasn't funding there to adequately take care of the building. The House of Charity was a very small organization and didn't have the deep pockets to care for that. But I can see where that would be a question around, you know.
So Kyle, your mic is coming in and out a little bit. Do we have another one, or should we solve it with Tasha's? Tasha, let's give your mic to Kyle and swap them out, and we'll just have one mic for questions. Technical fun, everybody. Thanks for being here. All right, last question, and then I promise it's all your turn. So about the 510 building, Kyle, why did you wait until the last minute to tell the public and Agate staff that 510 was closing? And when the money was raised, why didn't we use those funds to repair it little by little so that it could stay open? Right.
So, as I said earlier, the decision to close the 510 building really was something that we, as a leadership team, talked about with the board. There's no easy way to roll out that information. And because of the urgency of the situation at the building, we had lost several $100,000 on the building the prior year. It was becoming really clear that even with the small amount of money that we had set aside to plan on doing some repairs to the building, that it was like playing whack-a-mole a little bit. You fix this and then that breaks, you fix that and that breaks. And it was really clear that it was becoming an all or nothing situation. Because of the extensive repairs, even if we had wanted to do some of the repairs there, we would have had to clear out the building. There's asbestos in the building, there's lead paint in the building. The pipes to shut down water systems and plumbing systems would have required us to move people out. And so it just became clear that closure was the option. And even if we had known about these monies in advance, we still would have had to move people out to get the work done. So.
I think right here you had a question.
Just because the election next week, I was just wondering if you are doing anything to get people who are homeless to the, if they even, a lot of them might not know that they can vote.
Yeah. Yes. So we actually received a small grant, and I don't remember where the grant came from, but we received a grant, and we are doing supporting folks in getting to the polls. So we are communicating with folks who are living unsheltered their rights. We are offering to drive and take them to the polls. We're offering to get them registered to vote when that, if that was what was needed a bit earlier in the process. But we are making sure that everybody knows their rights, and we're offering to help in every way we can to make sure that their voices are heard. So yes, thank you for asking. And for all of you in the room, get out and do your civic duty as well. It's important.
Good question. Yeah, right here.
How many street outreach workers do you have? Do you need more, and how do you go about getting them?
Yeah.
And do you train them? Is there a way of training them?
Yeah. So currently, I believe we have about 7 or 8 street outreach workers on our team. That is the full amount that our contracts pay for right now. So we do have a full team. We could always use more. I would love to have twice as many folks, but right now we just don't have the contract funding for that. Where we get folks from is actually really interesting. 51% of our employee base, so if you think we have between 120 and 140 employees, but anywhere from 60 to 70 of our employees have lived experience of homelessness. So we have found that the best education for helping people who are in crisis are having people who have lived through that experience help with those experiences, right? So oftentimes what we're finding is people who are in those helping positions are people that want to give back, people that know what it's like to be in the shoes of another human, and because of their experience, want to make sure that they're helping other people. So we have a remarkable group of employees who have that base. Now there are some practical things that they need to learn, and we have a pretty robust internal training system for how to use the systems, how to get access to, how to record the paperwork, how to log into all of those. But those are easily teachable pieces, but that life experience really is what lends itself to the success of that team in particular.
Kyle, is there volunteer opportunities in street outreach?
So currently, I don't believe we have any street outreach volunteer opportunities. I know that there has been interest over the years in that, but we don't currently have street outreach opportunities right now.
Anyone else? Yeah, right here again. Did you have another question?
You mentioned paperwork. I'm a paperwork person, but does anybody do any research on your clients in a sociological way, where they study people coming in and what their characteristics are, what happens to them before, during, and after studies of
Yeah.
all your clients?
So we are currently We currently don't participate in any long-term studies that have happened. Greg Owen, who's on our board, actually worked at a Wilder Foundation, which does a lot of the work of research into those types of things. They do deep work in the communities of kind of trying to measure outcomes in various studies. They're an organization that we look to deeply for advice, and whenever a study is published, we read deeply about that. But we currently don't have any real program evaluations going on. Some of that can be quite costly over time, so unless opportunities come up where we can participate, we sure would love to. But right now, we don't have any of those opportunities going on.
Over here? Yeah.
This might be a question for Paul or Kyle. So, Homeless Day on the Hill in March is a pretty huge day where we can all go to visit our. Can you talk about that date? It's usually about the second week in March, and have everybody bring their friends and visit their legislatures, because it's we're given all the information when we get there. Well, I'm telling the whole thing now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kyle.
That was a really good advertisement, Kate. So yeah, Homeless Day on the Hill is a really big day. Paul, I don't know if you know if the dates have been set for that yet. It may not yet. But we always try to let people know when those opportunities are coming up. I would actually say that day is really great, and just as important are the individual, especially phone calls that you can do to your own individual legislators. That work is really important. We'll be sending out advocacy opportunities for you when we have bill numbers or things that are important for our work. And I can't tell you how important a phone call, 5 minutes of your time, makes a huge difference. Legislators listen when people call. They know. They also listen when emails and things come through, but especially phone calls are really powerful. I would also say that if you have friends, relatives, acquaintances, frenemies out in other areas of the state that you can pass on information to, that's also really powerful, because we oftentimes will need people outside the metropolitan area. Many of these programs are statewide programs, but we also need people in the outstate areas to also support those work. So advocacy is one of the really important things that you can do to help this organization.
Anyone else? Right here? Maybe we have someone over here in the white sweater. Yep.
Thank you. I'm kind of here as a spy. I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing. I've always followed you since way back. What would you say if I asked you, there are 140 agencies that the people at my cathedral, St. Mark's Cathedral, know about, and they all want us to help them, and I say, well, I think we should help Agate. I think we need to focus. Would you say that would be a partnership that could help you in general? We're not far away from 23rd. And maybe we just need it, and you need to be invited, huh? And tell them that you're the agency that we should focus on in the winter. We're doing food this quarter. Next quarter will be finding partners.
Yeah.
And I want you to be one of them.
I would love nothing more than to come over and talk about our work. And you're right, we are the partner you should be working with, right? Okay. And don't tell anybody, but I'm a Lutheran pastor, but on Sunday evenings, I sneak in the back door of your cathedral, and I go to choral evensong, and I try to be anonymous, and I try not to talk to a soul, and then I try to leave before anybody talks to me and to invite me to be part of the congregation. But I worship with your congregation in secret. Don't tell my Lutheran friends.
I heard, oh, right here. Yep.
Yeah, I have received an email or two regarding the funding from the city council advocating that the decision-making was not good. Is that funding then in jeopardy?
No. So that was passed through the city council, and I actually have time set aside with the CPED department to talk about how that money will flow. And because we guaranteed the match now, that funding is set and settled. There was really the argument around that funding between the city council and the mayor's office was really around process. They made sure to let me know that, Kyle, this isn't, any argument we're having here isn't about your organization. It really is about city council politics and process behind the scenes things. But at the end of the day, we had 8 of the council members sign on to the legislation. So we started with 1, and then it was up to 3, and by the end of it, we had 8 of our city council members all signed on to the legislation to get us the funding, and received remarkable support for that. So one of the things that you can do is to thank your city council members for supporting our work if you see them, because really it was unheard of for them to step up in that way. So yeah, we can do that. That's a, yeah, thank you for that.
I have one more question, and that is regarding, just so I'm clear on the history, which of the 2 organizations was the healthier or the larger of the 2 that
Yeah.
and how has that evolved with their development? You know,
Yep.
being able to hang on to the funding that came from whichever.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think either organization was necessarily unhealthy during the merger. Clearly, St. Stephen's was the larger organization, a much more structured organization, lots of government contracts. And so because of that, you have to have larger systems in place. They had a much larger employee base than the House of Charity did. House of Charity was smaller and really provided support in that downtown area within a couple block area there. And they were just launching into, with the new Park 7 building that they built right before the merger, into kind of growing organization. And I think it just...
This is House of Charity?
That was the House of Charity. Yep, they were the smaller of the 2. But I think, you know, at the time, it brought food resources to us. That was something that we at St. Stephen's didn't have at the time. And so I think it was a merger that, you know, made sense at the time. And as with anything, you find out that different places operate things differently, and sometimes it just takes a while to shake those things out. But I think that there were 2 very different organizations at the end of the day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Back in the back.
Hello. I have 2 quick things. I want to go back to the street outreach, and I carried for years in my car a supply of these little booklets from St. Stephen's, the green ones.
Yeah.
And it's just more and more difficult to find them and get them. Is there a template on the web that could be supplied to us that we could print them out at home?
The person who does that is right here, and he can tell you all about how to. Mike Menner is in charge of all of those pamphlets and things.
Yes, and the outreach, there is a PDF available on our website. Okay. If you click on the I need help and I want, there's like another button for something else, and that'll give links to the trifolds, order forms for the handbooks of the streets, and all of that. And then if you wanted to order some of those trifolds directly from us, I can give you my card.
Well, I've got card stock. I can print them out and be happy to do that and keep them in my car.
Great.
Because I want to make eye contact and personal contact with people without a donation, and I want them to know that there is help.
Yeah, that's really wonderful, and it's really important as you said, eye contact and human contact with people. Sometimes I think it's really easy to just look beyond and look past people.
Most people do.
And it means a great deal to the person who is experiencing those things too, to know that there's a human contact. So thank you for doing that. And it's a really good suggestion. Those pamphlets are really helpful. Little packs of food are really helpful. Lots of people carry socks or gloves. Anything you can do to have human contact is really important. So thank you for that.
And I often, when there's not time to roll the window down, I make a prayerful sign to let them know that they've been seen.
Yeah.
The other thing is that some of us are older and some of us are not as, I can't think of a word, but open to social media. For me, it's mostly privacy and time wasting. And so when we get all these invitations to follow and like and all these things, and I used to support Give to the Max, and it's become a hideous experience. And so is there a way to donate by mail and that you can apply that to the Give to the Max?
Yes. Send us your money any way you want. We'll take it.
Well, no, I know that, but I mean, is there a way to help you get up to that next level?
Yeah, it can.
Win the prizes and all that stuff.
If you send in a gift by or before November 21st, it'll count.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful.
She said send in a gift by or before November 21st if you couldn't hear her.
Any other questions?
What affiliation, if any, do you have with Peace House?
With Peace House?
What affiliation, if any, do you have with Peace House?
I'm not sure that I know of the organization. Does anyone at Peace House? Mike knows.
We do, and we have Peace House's executive director, Marty Maltby, with us.
I'm not going to say much because I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, please.
Peace House Community is a community center. We serve mostly homeless and low-income adults in the Ventura Village neighborhood.
Wonderful.
And I'm planning on getting in touch with you to
Great.
see, make sure we know about each other.
All right. Well, let's chat. That's wonderful.
It was teed up for you.
There you go.
My name is Scott Seal, and I've just met Marty this week, and I'd like to be involved in that when that happens.
All right.
Okay.
I look forward to that conversation.
Portland and I-94.
All right. Very close to us. Yeah.
Any last questions? Right here.
Now, Greg's my boss and president of the board. So be kind.
I just want to give you an opening to talk about donations to the Welcome Center.
Yes.
There were a number of Welcome Center volunteers at the Squirrel House gathering earlier this afternoon, and I was asking them about warm coats, sleeping bags, all of the things that people need to survive. Those gifts are welcome at the Welcome Center.
Yeah, we do have, we accept all kinds of things. We have in the basement of 2309. Coats are especially important this time of year. Coats, blankets, sleeping bags, tents, socks, gloves, hats, all of those types of things. And you can find ways to give and how to give on our website. And we're always happy to take those donations. So.
Well, I think if we don't have any more questions, is there any closing thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
So clearly, thank you all for your time. I know your time is valuable. I appreciate your spending some time with us today. We seriously and honestly could not do this work without folks like you as part of our network and part of our Agate family. We depend so heavily on the kindness and generosity of people like you. So thank you, sincerely. And then, because I'm a Lutheran pastor and I'm also a musician, I couldn't be in a place with a piano and a microphone. And I didn't realize till this morning, I thought, I bet there's a piano there. And I called Virginia and I said, could I end with a song for people? And Virginia said, okay, good, that'd be fine. So I did. I don't know about all of you, but these past few weeks have just been not only difficult at Agate, but the world is just really unsettled, right? I think we're all feeling just a bit of unsettled. And when I have those times, music helps me. So I'm going to ask you can sing along with me if you like. Sometimes that helps as well. But I'm going to close out with a song or maybe two, depending on how long you want me to stick around and do that. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. We're really glad to have you as partners in this work that we do. So thanks. Yeah. And thank you for thank you so much for hosting. What a pleasure. And you're right. I remember we did sit down together and talk about some things in a former job of mine as well.
For sure.
So.
No, I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone for coming to be part of this very critical conversation. So, and with that. All right. I'm going to move to the side because it feels strange.
All right, well, I said before that music helps me get through tough times, and this is one of my favorites. I think you'll all recognize it, and feel free to sing along with me. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, and I'm not the only one. Hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, and I'm not the only one. Hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Let's do that last part one more time and help me out. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, and I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Thank you all so much for coming today. Should we do one more? We're good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.